Coming up on the November 3rd edition of Carolina Week.
A night of indecision has ended with the occupants of the White House decided. We'll have your presidential election coverage.
In other races, Easley, Burr, and Price all catching the attention of many North Carolinians.
A day later, was Kerry's concession best for our nation? Find out what's on the mind of Carolina students.
Full election coverage plus your local sports and weather.
Carolina Week starts now.
From the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is Carolina Week.
Good evening, I'm Lydia Garlico.
And I'm Amanda Eiler. Thanks for joining us for our post-election coverage. Along with the rest of the country, the Carolina community can start to move forward after a bitterly contested presidential race.
Nearly 18 hours after polls in North Carolina and other eastern states closed, the race was finally decided. Senator John Kerry conceded about 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. You're seeing video of Carolina students gathered in the Union to watch presidential candidate John Kerry's concession speech. Kerry made his decision to concede in the early hours of Wednesday morning, then addressed a crowd of followers in Boston saying it's time to move on.
I would not give up this fight if there was a chance that we would prevail. But it is now clear that even when all the provisional ballots are counted, which they will be, there won't be enough outstanding votes for us to be able to win Ohio. And therefore, we cannot win this election.
Shortly afterward, joined by his wife and daughters at the Reagan Building in Washington, President Bush accepted, giving his victory speech and promising America 4 more years of service.
America has spoken, and I'm humbled by the trust and the confidence of my fellow citizens. With that trust comes a duty to serve all Americans, and I will do my best to fulfill that duty every day as your president.
If the numbers in Iowa and New Mexico hold up, President Bush will win the Electoral College by a final 286 to 252 count. He carried the popular vote by about 3.5 million votes, winning 51% to 48%. In North Carolina, the president won handily, 56 to 43%, despite a big loss in Orange County, which Senator Kerry won by 19 points.
Joining us now, our special guest, Joe Ura. He'll be with us throughout the show as our political analyst to comment about what exactly the results of this election mean. Joe, welcome.
Thanks.
We'll see you a little later, but first, now voters can rest a little bit after staying up late to see the results and after standing in long lines to cast their ballots. It was a huge turnout. So far, the number of those who voted in North Carolina is almost 3.5 million. And Orange County's turnout was also strong, seeing more than 60,000 voters at the polls.
Many of those folks had questions about voting and how the process works. That's why the North Carolina Voting Rights Project set up the Voting Rights Hotline here in Chapel Hill. Volunteer law students and attorneys spent Tuesday fielding more than 1,000 phone calls. Most people had questions about where to vote, but others reported serious problems at polling places across the state. In some cases, on-call attorneys went to polling sites to clear up any confusion. One volunteer says the hotline will not only educate voters in this year's election, but will also help the state improve the voting process in the future.
They're trying to correct problems, and a lot of these rules are new, and they need to know where things are going wrong.
As a part of the project, workers also distributed more than 25,000 copies of the North Carolina Voters' Bill of Rights. In Raleigh, state board members prepared for the busiest day of the year. At the State Board of Elections, high-tech servers such as these process most of the data. It's down the road at the Wake County Board of Elections where the real action takes place. Tuesday night, workers processed ballots and the results were printed on these receipts. Next door, reporters watched as the results came in on the big screen. Board of Elections Executive Gary Bartlett says he's pleased with how the night went.
An election like today is the cornerstone of democracy, and it's very rewarding to be part of that. We want to make it easy for voters and hard for cheaters.
The official state results won't be in for another 3 weeks after the state board verifies the votes and confirms the provisional ballots. A long and taxing night for everyone, including Carolina Week's Amanda Eiler, who spent the evening at the GOP headquarters in Raleigh following Bush in the presidential race. Amanda?
That's right, Lydia. Little sleep on all sides, including the president, who reportedly went to sleep at 5 Wednesday morning to wake only 2 hours later. A winner still wasn't declared this morning, but a close race did little to dampen the spirits of members of the North Carolina Republican Party. As the early returns in the presidential race were announced, caution was the word.
That thought is in the back of my mind that the deal isn't sealed yet.
Luke Farley, a member of the UNC Chapel Hill College Republicans, was one of hundreds of North Carolina GOP members waiting for the magic 270 at a hotel in Raleigh Tuesday night.
I think it's going to be a really long night.
And a long night it was, ending with President Bush and Senator Kerry in a dead heat in the critical swing state of Ohio. But a close race didn't stop the celebration as Bush picked up other swing states like Florida.
I'm so gung-ho on this guy that I'm just feeling great.
And as the hours passed, the party just got bigger.
North Carolina is still George W. Bush country.
I've never been more excited for an election. I've never been flipped off as much, but I've never seen so much excitement either.
The excitement lasted until early in the morning, ending with a declaration of victory.
I think the president has the votes this time around to win outright. Part of the reason that we're still here at 2 in the morning is to just see him really seal the deal.
Now, as most of you know, the president did finally seal the deal Wednesday afternoon when Senator Kerry conceded. We go now to Daniel Seiler, who was following Kerry.
Thanks, Amanda. Wednesday was a heartbreaking time for Kerry supporters, but on Tuesday night, hopes were high.
Election day began optimistically for Senator John Kerry. The presidential candidate and his family voted in Massachusetts and encouraged Democrats nationwide to turn out the vote. Leading figures in the Democratic Party, like Senator Hillary Clinton, said they looked forward to unseating President Bush and moving in a new direction.
Who do you trust?
I'm looking forward to working with President Kerry on behalf of New York. It'll be great to have a Democrat back in the White House to do the kinds of things that are needed here.
Even in North Carolina, things looked good as the polls rolled in, and it seemed like the Tar Heel state might turn a Democratic shade of blue. But as the evening wore on, what caused so many supporters to leave en masse? Republicans rallied, and Democrats were left to wonder why. Pundits called many states, including North Carolina, for Bush early, deflating Democrat spirits. State president of the College Democrats, Elizabeth Self, said she was let down by the election's result.
It's very disappointing. We've worked really hard. We worked for a very long time. We really believed in him. And it'll be interesting to move forward and see how things go with our country over the next 4 years.
When the election came down to the results of Ohio, vice presidential candidate John Edwards' message showed that the Kerry-Edwards ticket wasn't ready to concede.
John Kerry and I made a promise to the American people that in this election, every vote would count and every vote would be counted.
But as the day dawned Wednesday morning, the Kerry-Edwards team had to face the fact that their only hope of a win depended on securing at least 90% of Ohio's uncounted provisional ballots. They ultimately chose to concede. Amanda, Lydia, back to you on the desk.
Dan Seiler, thanks very much. We go now to our political analyst, Joe Ura. Joe, looking at what has just happened, Kerry's concession and Bush's win, should this be much of a shock for our nation?
Not really. We've known for a long time that this election was going to be awfully close, but the state of the economy is overall pretty good. Unemployment's about at the same level it was when Bill Clinton was reelected in 1996. The fact that Bush pulled out a narrow victory, sort of given the circumstances, really isn't terribly surprising.
Was it wise of Kerry to go ahead and throw in the towel, so to speak? Or do you think he should have waited for the Ohio provisional ballots?
Well, I think Senator Kerry pretty well summed that up himself. The math just wasn't there for him. He needed to win literally almost all of the provisional ballots to actually pull out a win, given the margin that President Bush had built up on Election Day, and that just really wasn't a realistic expectation. So conceding now saved the country a lot of stress and gave him the opportunity to exit gracefully.
And Joe, I'm sure there are many things that we can expect over the next 4 years, but briefly, anything you think we can count on?
I think the only thing that's even remotely a sure thing right now is that sort of the tension and the division that marked the campaign will probably continue. President Bush has pursued a very conservative agenda, and people have very strong reaction to that one way or the other, both supporters and opponents. So I think we can just expect a lot more of the same.
Joe, thank you. We'll be hearing from you again after the break.
Thanks.
Coming up, we'll be speaking with Joe again, this time about local elections.
Find out who won the votes here in North Carolina and what that could mean for the Tar Heel State.
AIDS has killed more children worldwide than there are in all the grade schools in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, Atlanta, and Miami combined. The time to do something is now.
During the fall, one of the most peaceful places on campus is the Forest Theater. Many great plays are held in this place of serenity. But my favorite times are when nothing at all is going on, and the colorful canopy of leaves overhead shelters you from the cares of the world. No one knows the real Carolina like a student.
We've followed this presidential election very closely, hearing things like the most important election in history.
North Carolina also had a few tight races, from governor to Senate to the House. For some, eyes have been on local elections. Joining us again to talk about this, Joe Ura.
Thanks.
Joe, as we just mentioned, the presidential race seemed to hold the attention of many, but local elections were also important. Should voters pay more attention to these elections?
Definitely. Most normal people tend to interact most with their state and local governments much more frequently than they would with the national government. Everything from getting your driver's license to paying your state taxes. So these elections are really where the action is for normal people.
How will the presidential election and the addition of at least 3 Republican seats in the Senate affect us locally?
You know, not an awful lot, but it's always good to have your representatives be in the majority. Electing a new Republican senator, expanding the size of the Republican Party delegation to the Congress, that's probably going to be a pretty good thing for North Carolina, as they'll be more able to work with the president, work with the majorities in the House and the Senate to sort of get things home and get things done and bring home the bacon.
Joe, again, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. The result in the race for governor was in early Tuesday night. Incumbent Governor Mike Easley won re-election. Reporter Joe Mott joined the Democrats at the Raleigh Convention Center to follow the gubernatorial race. Joe joins us now in the studio. Joe?
Throughout the campaign season, Governor Easley said under his leadership, the state emerged stronger from tough times. Ballantyne countered, saying Easley consistently raised taxes instead of managing a revenue shortfall by cutting back on government waste. In the end, it was the governor's argument that resonated with voters.
Polling throughout Election Day showed incumbent Governor Mike Easley with a sizable lead against his challenger, Patrick Ballantyne, even though not everyone trusts the minute-to-minute updates.
It's so frustrating, and I'm not going to get excited until I hear the real results.
While the real results slowly trickled in, Democratic supporters watched, waited, and danced at the Raleigh Convention Center. Though some thought it was too early to call, the Associated Press called the race for Easley at 7:30. It would be another 2 hours before Ballantyne would concede and offer an emotional close to the campaign.
But I love this state. I love North Carolina, and I wouldn't have traded it for the world.
Shortly after that, Easley accepted his victory in front of the packed crowd.
And I say to the people that I will take your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions, and your aspirations, and I will embrace them as my own.
At the time of his acceptance speech, with a little more than a third of precincts reporting on official results, Easley had 54% of the vote, and Ballantyne had 44%.
The final result, 55-43, was exactly what was predicted by a poll conducted by students in the School of Journalism. Ballantyne's loss was the first in his political career. Amanda and Lydia, back to you at the desk.
Joe, thank you. We go now to Shayla Freeman live in the newsroom with the results and close up on the race for Senate in North Carolina.
With John Edwards running on the presidential ticket, that left an open spot in North Carolina for the United States Senate. This race was decided Tuesday night.
Well, we're seeing some incredibly interesting things, aren't we?
We were at the Democratic headquarters in Raleigh, where Erskine Bowles supporters were shocked to find out Richard Burr would be the winner with more than 52% of the popular vote in North Carolina. Burr traveled to UNC Chapel Hill less than a week before the election to rally support. He told me he was excited to represent North Carolinians in Washington. Although this sign will be the one to stay around, Bowles is upbeat about his future.
But that does not mean that you have seen the last of Erskine Bowles.
However, Bowles did hint that this is it for him in terms of politics. We also spoke with Burr's son, who's a freshman at Carolina. He said that his father's win was an exciting moment in their household. He says his father will work to represent North Carolina with Elizabeth Dole to improve the state. Lydia.
4th District U.S. Representative David Price will return to Washington after winning his race for Congress. The veteran Democrat earned 69% of the vote to defeat Republican political newcomer Todd Batchelor. Price's supporters, both young and old, held signs, cheered, and even danced at the North Carolina Democratic Party event in Raleigh Tuesday night. Price spoke highly of his supporters and vowed to uphold his campaign promises.
I will work to merit your confidence and to keep the energy and vision that have fueled this campaign this year alive for years to come.
To recap, North Carolina voters helped re-elect a Republican president, voted in a second Republican senator to take John Edwards' seat, sent this district's representative back to Washington, and sent a Democratic governor back to Raleigh, along with a Democrat-controlled state house, which now consists of 63 Democrats and 57 Republicans. Well, from elections to weather, weathercaster Meredith Croak joins us now.
A little bird told me this unusually warm weather is about to end.
Yeah, well, we certainly have had really warm weather lately, but that is about to change. So I'll have your full forecast coming up after the break.
What is that thing?
Looks like somebody's double chin. Must have lost it snacking on fruits and vegetables.
Somebody's gonna trip on that.
Almost half of all parents who suspect their child has a problem learning wait a year or more before getting them help. Why? When there's so much they could be achieving. Kids with learning disabilities are smart. They just learn differently. Call or visit us on the web now.
Hi, and welcome back to Carolina Week. I'm meteorologist Meredith Croak. First, let's take a look at your weather headlines. We will have some chilly nights coming up, so it is going to cool down, but it will be a sunny weekend, and we will have a Sunday warm-up, so it looks like those temperatures will be rebounding as we go into Sunday. Let's take a look at your satellite map now. You can see this area of clouds over the region currently. That's going to start to push through over the next few days, and with that, we'll have clear skies. You see behind this, very clear skies back to the west. So with those clear skies, that's what's going to let our temperatures drop very low during the evening hours. Let's take a look at that surface map now, and you can see this is a cold front, and it's actually stalled out. That's what's giving us the continued cloudy weather throughout today and the next couple of days. But behind that, a high pressure system back to the west, and that's going to really just let our skies be very sunny out there. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, but chillier temperatures. So it is starting to feel like November out there. And as we take a look at your Carolina Week 4-day forecast, you can see here you have it, sunny skies throughout the weekend, and that's associated with that high pressure system that will be sitting right over us throughout the weekend. But you can see Friday 58 degrees, and look at the low, 38 degrees on Friday night. So that is really the coldest temperatures we've had so far this year. So it's going to be very chilly. And as we head in through the weekend, temperatures will gradually start to warm up. 64 by Sunday and 65 by Monday, and the lows will stay in the 40s. So that is right around normal for this time of year, so it is starting to get a little bit chillier out there. As we take a look at your beach forecast, you can see pretty nice day at the beach, 62 on Saturday and 65 on Sunday, and with the lows in the mid to low 40s. So, and if you're heading out to the mountain this weekend, your mountain forecast, Saturday 60 degrees and Sunday a little bit cooler, 58 degrees, and your low temperatures again in the low 30s, mid 30s, excuse me. As we take a look at your fall foliage forecast now, western North Carolina peak and central North Carolina is early peak. And as we take a look at your game day forecast now, if you're heading out to the game, it's going to be about 51 at kickoff time. A little bit cooler though when you're heading out, so you definitely want to bring a jacket or a sweatshirt or something when you're heading to that game. So.
But it does get hot out there, so I would definitely say bring something you can take off, like a jacket or something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Meredith.
And Sexton joins us now with sports. Looks like it's going to be a hard game coming up.
Definitely going to be a hard game. Virginia Tech is ranked 18th, but after Miami, 18th, we played the number 4 game and we beat them. But I have this theory that State beat Tech, we beat State, so maybe we'll beat Tech. We'll see. Well, coming up on Carolina Week Sports, the football team's monumental win Saturday against number 4 Miami has changed the face of Tar Heel football. Like all good journalists, we'll bring you the who, what, where, when, why, and how when Carolina Week Sports returns.
Take a pop quiz with me. In what film did I feel a need for speed? What was my call sign? Who did I sit behind in the F-14? Oh, and one more question. Who does your kid sit behind in homeroom?
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school and know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
Hear the one about the mom and the mechanic? They made a big splash running a car wash. See, the local PTA, an auto body shop, and their community coalition organized car washes, raising money to expand after-school programs. They knew keeping kids busy keeps them away from drugs. So now the town's got clean cars and clean kids. What can your group do? Contact your community coalition at helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more
when you get together.
Welcome back to Carolina Week Sports, where dreams apparently do come true. I'm Ann Sexton. A fairy tale couldn't have come at a better time for head coach John Bunting and his Tar Heel football team. Connor Barth kicked the Tar Heels back into bowl contention with his 42-yarder as time expired Saturday. Some even call it the best win in Tar Heel history, but the team can't rest on that one win. Heading into the Miami game, Carolina's defense had given up an average of 508 yards per game. Against the Canes, though, the Heels' D buckled down. It allowed only 415 total yards and a minuscule 77 on the ground. Carolina will continue its hot play Saturday. The 18th-ranked Virginia Hokies come in averaging more than 33 points a game this season. Game time is set for Saturday at noon. Do you remember when guys thought playing with girls was yucky? Well, sports reporter Jason Lucas says all that has changed in Carmichael Auditorium.
The women's basketball team is working hard to keep up with the lofty expectations after being tabbed first in the ACC by the media. The team is even using a few good men to help them practice. These volunteer players play JV basketball, or they currently light it up on Woodland. Every Thursday night, they give their time to make these ladies better. These scrimmages are the best opportunity for the women's basketball team to get a serious outside opponent. Girls versus guys, don't let that fool you. These games are very competitive.
It gets pretty competitive, especially when they get down or it's real tight. They throw some elbows and some other things, so it gets really close, I'd have to say.
If you're the average Joe who wants a game on Thursday nights, forget about it. It's invitation only.
I was in Woodland one day, and Ivy Latta came up to me. He's like, thought I was pretty good. You know, I took that as a compliment, knowing she's All-American and everything. And she invited me out, so I came out and played. She said, come out, give me a call. And she gave me a call, and I came out.
These players don't receive any benefits or accolades, but they do get to realize the dream of playing basketball at Carolina.
So we really like being able to come out here and take advantage of the opportunity we wouldn't normally have.
It's a dream come true. I like Carmichael, Dean Dome, just playing in these kind of gyms, man. This is like tradition, man. I just love it. I enjoy it, every minute of it.
Playing against one of the top women's teams in the ACC, the guys have to bring their A game.
Sometimes it's even, but we usually got to get the upper hand on them, you know, represent for the fellas.
Despite what the scoreboard says, this is a good situation for everybody. The women's team is getting better, while the volunteer players are playing a game that they love. In Chapel Hill, I'm Jason Lucas, Carolina Week Sports.
If you want to see if practice makes perfect, check out the women's team Thursday night against the EA Sports All-Stars. There is a difference between winning and dominating. Tuesday night at Carmichael Auditorium, the volleyball team demonstrated that difference as it made quick work of NC State. Last time the two opponents faced off, UNC won in 3 straight games. Tuesday continued the trend. Amy Beaver starts out with a kill off of Mackenzie Bird's assist in the first game, but defense takes over as Camila Ahenetu and Beaver combine on the block. But no volleyball highlights are complete without the signature Molly Piles kill. The win especially satisfied freshman Amy Board of Raleigh, who said it felt good to see her team focus outward.
I think we really played well together, and sometimes when things aren't going well, we tend to focus energy inward, and I think we really focused our energy outward tonight, and we really played as a team.
The team play continues with final ACC regular season matchups against Florida State and Miami. Well, ladies, there's a lot of ACC action this weekend, a lot of tournament action, so hopefully we'll see you guys there.
Sounds great. Looking forward to the last home football game. Thanks,
Thanks,
Ann. John Kerry took the lead in Orange County with 19 percentage points.
But do students think that Kerry's concession was the best thing for our country?
Properly inflating my tires burns less fuel and saves me money on gas. Yeah, I'm saving Mother Nature from pollution, but more importantly, she saved me $11. Ow!
Environmental defense. Get green.
By keeping my car regularly tuned, I save money on gas and repairs. That also means cleaner air. You know, feels good to help save the cash, planet.
Environmental defense. Get green. For more tips, go to getgreen.com.
If you have a story idea, contact Carolina Week at 843-8292. You can also visit us online at carolinaweek.org. If you have questions about this program, write Carolina Week at Campus Box 3365, UNCCH, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, 27599.
With the election decided, we wanted to find out from Carolina students what they think about how things ended.
As you might expect, opinions vary.
I'm actually kind of glad Kerry conceded early because I think that shows kind of respect for our political system.
Maybe if it's a little closer race, like 200 or 300 votes, you might have waited for a little while, but yeah, this definitely should have conceded.
He conceded? He's going to concede at what? Oh my God.
I just think it's the right thing for him to do to show that he is a bigger person than George Bush is.
I don't think it's necessarily a good thing for the nation that this gets set as a precedent that this is the way that elections are going to be from now on.
There's no point to push it forward, it seems, at this point, statistically. In terms of the fact that he had to concede, I'm fairly disgusted, actually.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Carolina Week. Thanks for watching.
Good night.